Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda, and this is the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
This podcast is all about taking action and creating that badass business abundance and life that you want.
Where we share stories, laughs, wins, and epic fails to show you the whole picture of the entrepreneurial journey.
It's not just unicorns and rainbows, people.
Jump on and follow us through this raw and witty roller coaster,
where we get down and dirty and go behind the scenes of life and entrepreneurship.
Get on it,
get over it,
and get after it.
Hey, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. We are here together. I know for those of you who are watching online on YouTube, you'll be amazed that we're in the exact same room today. But we are talking about booths and expos. We're coming on spring, we're coming on summer, and if there's one thing that a business can see in this season, it is expos, booths, group events. So let's talk about how you can maximize your booth so that you stand out amongst the crowd.
Yes. We love booths. We love fairs and expos. There's a couple of things that we really want to hone in. First of all is before you even sign up, is your target audience going to be there? Are the people being drawn to that particular event, expo, fair? Are they either your strategic alliances? So then you kind of set up differently, or are they your actual clients? Putting consideration in not just kind of willy-nilly and doing every fair or expo just because it's in your industry will serve you. It saves you money, it saves you time, it saves you headache, and it helps give you directive. So really making sure, is your target audience going to be there before you even sign up? The second thing we would say is then what is your objectives and responsibility? So looking at what the fair organizer or expo organizer has given you for your expectations. Do you have to advertise? Do you have to do this? Do you have to do that? Because that allows even some possible collaboration, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, you want to know what the expectations are and then what your goals are for the event.
And when speaking of goals, where a lot of people go wrong is that they think, okay, I have an expo, I've got all these people, I'm going to try to sell every single product that I have, every single service that I offer. I'm just going to try to sell everybody on everything because they're going to be there. So I have to tell them about everything that I have. And the reason that's a mistake is that it's too much. They're already overstimulated at a giant expo, at a giant fair. There's already, depending on the size of the expo, there could be thousands of booths, just like yours in theory, they're walking past. So the last thing you want to do is inundate them with more information at a single booth than they've seen in the last 10. So it's really diluting what it is that you're trying to do, because that's a lot of information to process. And if you're trying to sell every single one of your products and services, you're not going to sell any.
Yes, absolutely. We always advise to have one primary product or service, depending on, again, on the environment and the target audience that's going to be there. Should help you kind of guide which product or service that you want to primarily speak on. It doesn't mean that you might not have a list of other things, or if you are a product provider, we're not saying like if you have 10 different flavored teas that you don't sell all of the flavored teas. We're talking about different completely products. So if you have teas, you have incense, you have sage sticks, you have banners, you don't want to sell all of those all at once. You want to keep it clear to one product or one main service and then kind of talk around that. So another example from a service point of view is if you are a hypnotherapist and you also work with kids and you want to work in schools and you can do Reiki and do all of these other things, then okay, if it's a fair at a school, then maybe you talk just about your parent coaching and then the rest comes secondary, the hypnotherapy, the Reiki, the other gajillion things that you might do, because you want to keep it clean and clear. And that will help you, which we're going to talk about in a second, with the setup of your environment, which is also so important.
It's extremely important. And, depending on the expo or the fair, the booth situation, often you can choose where you are in the layout of the room. Sometimes you can't choose at all, and that's fine. And then sometimes, depending on, like Lynn said, how much money you have or what the prime spots are, you can kind of pick and choose where you are. So, if it's high summer and 1,000,000 degrees outside, you're in the outside booth, you might not want to be there. You might want to be in the inside with air conditioning because people are going to be more likely to hang out there. Maybe you want to be next to an outlet. Maybe you want to be on a corner. Maybe you want to be at the very front when they walk in. So there's a lot of options there that you can look into, but mostly they're going to come with a price point. So a lot of that will depend on your price situation. But regardless of where you are in the room, you can still make sure your setup stands out with a few tips. So one of the easiest things to do is when you're thinking about setting up your booth, it doesn't matter how big it is. If it's a small booth, if it's a giant one, we want levels and layers so that you have some visual stimulation, but it shouldn't be so overcrowded that it's like,
where do I go?
Like, where do I go? What's happening? You know, is this a booth on hoarding? I don't know. So we want to make sure you have some of these things at different levels. So you have stuff at table level, things that are propped up, make on an apple box, or what, you know, apple box is the term that I use, but I'm sure there's other real terms for it. That's the TV version for it.
I've never heard of an apple box.
An apple box is it's a television. When I was a producer, it was an apple box. Like you stand on the apple box. Anyway, the point is it's layers and levels. So where can you put your stuff that's going to be visually appealing? Do you have a tall banner? Is the banner completely visible? Can you see it? Is it behind your booth? Is it in front? How much space on the side? So you really want to make it visually appealing without over stimulating your audience.
Yes. Whatever an apple box is, you can have just basic boxes or little stands, or depending on your product and service, you might have your own shelving unit that's specifically made, especially if you're doing a lot of fairs and expos, and this is where your traffic comes from and your money comes from, then it would behoove you to invest in the proper setup things, where it might be a shelf that you have built or little like stands and different things like that. So you definitely want to look at that. But if it's something that you casually do, then maybe you don't invest in that. But there might be some things that you invest in. Little, like, what are those plastic that hold like a sheet of paper? Like a picture frame, but it just holds a sheet of paper. So that way you can have the QR code for different things or whatnot. What is that called?
It's escaping me. It's like
it's a plexiglass.
It's for a rack card. It's a stand.
It's like this.
It's a tea stand, but you know, put your stuff.
No, I'm thinking of like an L stand, kind of like lean with it.
Anywho, you know what we're talking about.
Anywho, but if you're using like boxes and things, you want to make sure that you're putting it underneath your tablecloth and then kind of fitting your tablecloth. So it's important for you to know what's provided to you by the vendor. Typically, it's a plain white if they provide with a tablecloth and 2 chairs and a table, right? That's the basic. So if you have a branded, at minimal, we would say some kind of brand color or branded tablecloth in different lengths or in a couple of different sizes. So that way, depending on the table size, you can show up prepared and it looks professional. It looks like it's supposed to be there. And if you're doing the multiple layers, you need the tablecloth bigger than what the actual table is, because otherwise it won't go to floor. And that's really important for it to go to floor because it hides your feet. It looks cleaner. It doesn't have to go to floor in the back, obviously. But if your logo isn't placed right, like if you actually place your logo on it, you're shoving things all the way to the front, then it might not look professional. So you just kind of got to gauge it. So that way, you know, I'm neither here nor there with logo prints on your table covers. I think you can have that other places personally. So that way you have more play with your manipulation of your tablecloth. Yeah. I know it's simple. We're talking about tablecloths, but it makes a difference.
And I will say it also makes a difference if your tablecloth is wrinkle-free.
Bring a steamer.
Bring a steamer. Back in the day when I was doing it, it was like this huge like rolly cart thing we had to bring around. Now they have these now they have these little handheld ones that are battery operated. It's magic. But you're going to want a steamer because it absolutely makes a difference if you have this clean, crisp view versus like this crinkled, I've been in a box for, 364 days. It makes a difference. So definitely take that in consideration. I also am not a big fan of putting a logo on my tablecloth because I don't know the size of the table and I can always kind of pin my tablecloth around. And that's another thing. I'll bring extra tape, string, clips, all those things, all the ways to fasten stuff, one of those little like clip guns things, because you never know what the setup's going to be and what you can pin into, what you can clip into, what you're going to need like fishing line for. And also it's really good to be the table that has all those things. So when somebody next to you is like, oh my God, nothing's sticking. You're like, oh, well, I have duct tape. And then you're the go-to table for all the other vendors as well. So like insider tip there, it makes you the most lovable person in the room.
We'll put the lists, the cheat sheet lists in the notes because absolutely you should have your emergency kit. Yeah. For your first aid kit. That's the word I was looking for. Your first aid kit. I love that.
But this is your emergency kit for the expo because there's always extra pens, things like your pen will go out of ink. Always. Yes. Always extra things. We'll put that list in the show notes so you have it. However, I don't like to have my tablecloth branded because I want to have the option and the flexibility to pin it depending on the size. So what I usually do is have a banner of several sizes. You can have them printed cheap. They don't have to be super high end for every single thing that you do, but I do like to have a banner of some kind in various sizes that I could pin to the front, that I could pin behind me, depending on the setup of the room. The ones that pull up like a little shade, those ones are really nice to have if you have a bit more real estate. Even the ones that are half table, so that you can put them on.
Size,
yeah. So it's worth it to have those as long as it stays open in the branding. So if you're only going to be promoting one specific thing, you don't want to have 50 different banners for 50 different things you're promoting. It should be like your basic banner with your branding, with your QR codes, with your information.
Your business.
It should be very, very straightforward for everything. So you're using the same banner, because if you're going to invest, if you're going to take the energy and the time and the money to invest, make sure you're investing in a banner that is going to take you more than one expo.
Absolutely. I do love the variation, because there might be some expos that don't allow you to put a different color tablecloth. There are some that only want the white, the cleanliness of the white. And so with those, it gives you a little bit more play to be able to stand out. So we spoke about setup. You should always be early. Again, you should come over prepared. Make sure that you have a change of clothes. Like if you're wearing a logoed shirt, we have a client recently that's getting a QR code on the back of one of her shirts that will go to a landing page, and she can change where it goes depending on when she's wearing it or when she's using it. And so you want to make sure that you look at the whole 360. So even before you go, I'm going to back up here too, is if you know other vendors who are going to be there, or you can ask for the vendor list, then you start to connect with them prior to the event. You see where they're going to be. You create a plan where you can actually pass people back and forth. Oh, did you see Amanda's booth? She's selling so-and-so. Why don't you go over here? She's right over here. Or if there's two of you, which we advise always multiple people at a booth or an expo, and then the other person can take them over there. But essentially pre-expo, as much as possible, connecting with the people that you know that are going to be there and or new people, and just seeing if there's any collaboration that can happen even prior to promoting giveaways, which we're going to talk about in a second. Maybe you guys give each other's products or services to each other and do a giveaway, or do a big joint giveaway. Also make an agreement to talk about each other's target audience and send people over to each other's booths. Or even like they could ask, hey, have you been to Amanda's booth yet? While you're wrapping up with stuff. Amanda who? It just makes you look like you're in the know, and it really helps each other, right? Because then they're more likely to pay attention because somebody's sending them over, as long as they're listening and it's not just some random, hey, have you heard of Amanda, and send them over to Amanda's booth. But it's really important to kind of just like pregame with potential partners that could help each other in the room.
Absolutely, because that strategic partnership can make your booth go a lot further, because again, you're in the community, you know what else is there, and you can edify each other, which makes your booth seem more desirable, because it's always better to get somebody else's outside opinion. We all know at our booth, our business is the best, our products are the best, our services are the best. But if the booth down the way is saying that they're the best, it goes a lot further.
Yeah. Okay. So then it's the day of the expo. So everything's set up, you have your partners in place, everything looks great. Now it's about working the room. You should have your 30-second down like on point, how you're going to create conversation. What are some questions that you would ask that individual to kind of catch their attention and see if they're the right fit? Be able to handle objections if objections are going to come up. Have something that's going to make you stand out. So it's not the, hey, how are you doing? Come over here, buy my things. It's really thinking about your script and your presence, which we'll get a little bit more into, but your script and how you navigate that. There's so many things the day of.
Well, we spoke about it briefly about having a second person there. Now, I know it's not always possible to have a second person, but if you can, it is so helpful to have a second person there, not just because there are slow times where like one person could go get the coffee, but also ideally you want someone in front of the booth. You shouldn't be back behind the booth sitting, because that's one of the most unapproachable booths that exists in the world. If you can be doing something, like if you're at a craft fair and you have a craft booth, like to be doing some of what you're showing, how you make things, is going to bring people in more than you just sitting behind and staring at the people as they walk by. It's super uncomfortable. So if you have a second person there, one of you can be behind, one of you can be in front mingling, one of you can be helping direct at another booth. There's a lot more mingling happening, and it's a much more approachable booth if the person is in front, and they're more likely to start a conversation with you if you're standing and in front of the booth. So wear good shoes. But
yeah, because you stand in front of them.
Yeah, like, you're like right there, like, hey, what's up? I mean, if you're ever like New York City or any city and people are by like handing out flyers on the streets,
yeah,
that's front. They're in front of the store. You didn't walk into the store to get those flyers.
And typically they're on the sidewalk, not even the good ones, but not standing with their back towards the store facing the sidewalk. They're in the middle of the sidewalk.
Yes. Yeah. So it's the same kind of idea. You're at an expo, you want to get people's attention. Like, there's no shame in that game. Don't hate the game, hate the player. Like, by all means, give your things out. And with that in mind, one of the best things you can do, obviously, if you can sell, great. Sell. We love that. However, often at a booth scenario, at an expo scenario, the selling doesn't really happen always at the expo. A lot of it happens post in the follow-up you have. So if you can collect information in any way possible, whether that's scanning a QR code, having them join a newsletter list or a giveaway, that's going to be a way to connect with them after the fact. And you'll be more likely to convert those people, particularly if you have like a higher end service. I mean, if you've ever been to a wedding expo, like you're not booking your photographer and your videographer at the event, you're grabbing everybody's business cards and then you're thinking about it later. You're not really signing $10,000 at an expo, generally speaking. Maybe you will. You're awesome.
I mean, it does happen, but you are correct. Especially service-based companies, you most likely aren't going to have purchases there. You can set up meetings, but gathering that contact information is super important. Now, products, slightly different. Probably are going to push a lot more products. There's a bit more salesy that's happening where it's still building relationship, but you want to kind of close them. So you're putting on your big boy, big girl sales pants, but with the services slightly different. Like, it's about nurturing them. It's about seeing the intrigue, and it's about setting up a potential appointment or even booking. Sometimes you can close them. Speaking of closing though, you need to make sure that you can take their money. Yes. Now that's true in any aspect of business, but especially at an expo. Now we're here in Thailand. As you know, I live in Thailand. Amanda's visiting me. And QR codes are huge, or bank transfers. People have their bank information up on a little placard or a QR code. So have that prepared, whatever that means to you, even if it's on your screen of your phone. If you don't have a placard, you can put a QR code or some kind of shortcuts. That way you can take payment, or, if you're taking cards or whatnot. So just make sure that you are able to accept payments and that there's not going to be any hesitation on your side.
And if you're accepting cash, have change.
Oh, yes.
Have change. Don't expect your people to have change.
No.
They're not going to have change. They're not. So
it's like a garage sale.
It is. It's like a garage sale, but you want to have cash on hand if you're accepting cash. If you don't want to accept cash, that's fine too, but you might want to have more than one way for them to pay. So whether it's some sort of Cash App or a Venmo situation or a transfer or whatever, PayPal, Stripe, there's a million ways to get people to give you money, but get them to give you the money and have a way for them to pay. That we don't want to chase money, particularly after an expo, you'll never see them again. So we want to make sure you make it easy to pay as much as possible. But when we're talking about collecting contact information, one way that I almost always collect contact information is to have some kind of giveaway that is a big prize pack. So people want to give you their information. And as we mentioned earlier, if you can combine that with another booth that's in the area, so you guys are mingling those leads, that's even better, because then there's 2 or 3 or 5 of you collecting leads all at the same time for a variety of products, so that you might be able to hit a different target or a target adjacent group. So any way you can collect, always collect their full name, their email, and their phone number. You want to have all 3 of those if you can. And sometimes they're not going to put it in there, but they can't win if they don't give you a contact information. So we want to make sure that it's easy for that. Personal trick, I always make sure that if it's like a fishbowl full of tickets, there's always tickets in there before the expo starts. So people know that it's a hot commodity. If I have a sign-up sheet, there's always names on the sign-up sheet. Nobody ever fills out the first line of a sign-up sheet, even if it's a sign-up sheet from the last expo that I did, and I'm just marking it on there so that I know if maybe I changed the pen color, maybe I just added my own name in there. People aren't going to sign to be the first ones. So if you want to make sure that it's a hot commodity, give them a little bit of a push by realizing that other people want it as well. It's that sort of FOMO scenario.
Yeah. Again, with the basket or with the giveaway. It shouldn't be a discount where they have to buy something and get something. And also think of your target audience, like who's in that room and will they want that stuff? And then you can even get even more. Amanda said, like, use the people in the room, the other vendors. But if it's a women made only handcrafts, then only have women made products in there, right? So if it's a sustainable expo, then maybe only have things that are sustainable, right? So you really want to kind of like, what would they want? The other thing, which is silly, but it could draw people, is having something that's small, that with each purchase they get something small, or like candy. Candy is a big thing at expos. And here's a reason, because people love to have candy.
People love free stuff.
Yeah, free stuff, even if they don't eat it. So many times where I've grabbed candy and I didn't eat it. And so having something like that they could take right then and there will help draw people. And then you can start that conversation as well. Let's talk about mindset while we're here. And then we'll talk about kind of wrapping up. Is you have to go in it with the right mindset. Again, we already spoke about, like, you're not going in it to sell unless you have a product that's slightly different. If you have a service, you're not going in it to sell. Think about it as the whole, like you're collecting information, you're building your brand. What do you want your brand to feel like? You're building know, like, trust. Then your attitude. Your energy has a lot to play with what's going to happen. So are you approachable? Is your team member approachable? Even if you're standing there, if you're not approachable, if your energy is off, then you're going to throw things off and you're not going to get people to come to your booth. You're not going to get people to engage. So really keep it in mind, like, okay, everything's set up. Now I'm there. I'm working the crowd. Am I likable? Am I approachable? Am I using my assets or putting on a show if I need to put on a show in order to bring people in, but still staying authentic to who I am and to the brand, or to who we are, because it should be multiple, even if the person isn't part of your business. And that goes for that person too, like having a conversation, having a plan of who's going to do what, how are you going to work the room as well. Because once you're there, it's not just about the people, it's also that are coming by your booth, but one of you could also work the other vendors, right? And just kind of exchange things. If you have freebies for the vendor or discount codes for the vendors, just because they are a part of it as well. We're not opposed to giving out like free coupons or discount coupons to the other vendors to say, hey, stop by my booth after 3 or whatever, close to the end. So that way, if whatever supplies are left, we'll go ahead and give you 50% off or whatever that is, if that makes sense. It doesn't always make sense for everybody, but think of ways that you can connect with the other vendors in the room, and then the follow-up starts.
And follow-up is so important, because I say this with love. My client is listening, you know I'm talking about you. It does nothing to collect their information if you never follow up with them. Then it was just a pointless exercise in collecting information that you'll never use. So if you have your expo and you have this big bowl of everybody who is going to be entered in the giveaway, and you never draw from it and you never announce a winner, and you just have it sitting there and you're like, oh, a month later, maybe I should contact these people. It's too late. They don't remember you. They don't remember that expo. They've already been to 7 expos since then. So follow up is key. If you're planning on collecting information, plan on giving yourself time, either later, depending on the length of the conference or the length of the expo, at least the next day, plan on inputting those stuff, put it into a system, put it into a CRM, reach out to them. If you said there was a giveaway, then give the thing away and contact the person. If they didn't win the giveaway, you still contact them and say, hey, you didn't win this, but you can win this. Do you want to grab this discount here? I'm offering this special for expo people, like whatever it is. But don't sit on those contacts, because if you wait 48 hours even, it's not as effective. The sooner you can reach back out to them, the more likely they are to convert to buying customers.
Yeah, because they become prospects at that point. So you're nurturing them and you're pushing them through the funnel. I agree. Now, we say put them into your CRM, but we know that they're supposed to be opt-ins and stuff. And so
it depends on how you took their information.
Yes.
So like if they signed an online form and they signed up for your newsletter via QR code and it's very clear, then obviously they go into your CRM. But if it's just like they put into a giveaway, you have to nurture them before you do that. There's laws around that. However, your CRM doesn't necessarily have to be your automated CRM. It can just be your client journey that you've created as like an SOP around your expo. So you're putting them into a next step funnel, whatever that looks like. But you have to do the actual work. Because I say this not just because my client just did it, but because I have done it before where I'm super tired. It was a whole long weekend. I was outside in an expo for 4 days and I was exhausted. And the last thing I wanted to do was follow up. And then those things, they just sat there for weeks. It was useless. And it was like, why did I even go to that expo? That's the reason behind that. Not just that you're giving those people your attention so that they become warmer leads, but you're making it more worthwhile to be at those expos, because depending on what or if you sold anything, those leads are the potential ROI on that expo.
So just a couple of bonuses, have your social media QR codes available. So that way you can even do, hey, if you like, follow and comment or whatnot, something around that, then maybe they get put into a different drawing, but also you're driving traffic there. You can actually do your giveaway through them only doing that versus fishbowl. But I do definitely like a fishbowl and or clipboard because then people actually see it. If you do push it to social media, we advise a hashtag, a special unique hashtag, so that way it's just easier for you to keep track of, because then you can look up that hashtag afterwards, see that 50 people use that hashtag that day, and then you can do a drawing based on that. We would strongly suggest for you to use social media as a leverage when you're doing fairs and expos. While you're there, do some lives, have people post, tag people, especially those other vendors that you know, et cetera, putting your giveaway winner on social media as well. Congratulations, Amanda, for winning and tagging them if possible. Sometimes you might not be connected to them, but using social media, not just to drive traffic before you go. So doing some behind the scenes also during, but even after. And it just kind of keeps that momentum going. It builds know, like, trust. It shows that you're part of the community and that you follow through on your shit, essentially, because you are posting your free giveaway in that group.
And you can even do like a live while you're at the event. You talk about behind the scenes, like you can do lives for your social media while you're there, and you can entice people to follow you based on that. Be like, oh, we're here at such and such expo and we're going to be giving away anybody who follows us within the next half hour. So any followers will be giving away this special prize. So you can actually entice people to sign up for you and to follow you while you're at the expo. And I've seen that work really well. Well, it was a mobile bar company, but everybody who signs up our social media account, we're going to pull someone from there to get a free round of drinks, and people wanted a free round of drinks. So they sponsored that and it worked really well. I mean, luckily it was a 21 and up event, so everybody there was legal. But the point is, I think they got like 600 people that day just to people wanting a drink, and they were able to pull that many followers. And depending on how vigilant you are with your followers, a lot of people don't unfollow just right after an expo just for the sake of a contest. Some people will stay on a little longer, or they'll stay on forever because they just forget.
Depends how engaging you are. I mean, it's social media.
It's social media. So it's how social are you with them? So there's a lot of potential there. And I know it's not everybody's favorite topic to think about social media because you're at an in-person event, but it does drive growth. So
yeah. And well, if you're tagging the location and the event, then more people are going to have eyes on your account. So lots of different things. We hope that there's some little nuggets here in the booth at the expo or the fairs this coming season. Yeah, I think that's it.
Make sure you are liking, subscribing to our YouTube and beyond. And if you know any other business owners who are about to enter expo season, make sure you send them this episode, because this applies to all industries. We have done expos across many of the industry. Our clients do them all the time. So if you have questions along your expo, please reach out to us. We'd love to shoot the shit with you, let you know what's going on.
Absolutely. Till next time.
Get after it.
All right, everyone. It's not enough to just listen.
Now you've got to put it into action.
We are so excited to see what you do next.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review on iTunes.
And to find out more about what we're doing, visit us at thepursuitofbadasserie.com.